Good afternoon, and thank you so very much for joining this webinar, Laying Strong Lifelong Foundations here at the Langley School. I'm Eleanor Scully. I am the head of school, and I'm delighted that you're joining us today for this webinar. I have been in education since I graduated from college and have spent my entire career in independent schools. Before I came to Langley School, I was at National Cathedral School for Girls in Washington, D.C., and before that, St. Stephen's and St. Agnes School in Alexandria, Virginia. And I am just delighted and loving my work here at Langley as I begin my 5th year as head of school. I am also involved in a number of professional organizations, including the Virginia Association of Independent Schools, and am also the president of the Elementary School Heads Association, which is a national organization looking at the model of education we embrace here at Langley. So the purpose of today's webinar is for us to introduce you a little bit to the philosophy that we have here at Langley, tell you a little bit about what research in the field of education is telling us, and how that translates to the program and curriculum here at Langley. I'm also going to give you some information about how you can learn more about our school and get involved in our admission process. And we will take time at the end of our webinar to take your questions. So I'm going to advance the slide here, I think. And when that happens, which is just giving me one little hiccup, I think I've got it right here. There we go. I apologize. You'll notice, as I just said, what our agenda is, but I just want to take a moment to note that picture, that delightful picture on the far right corner of the young girl who is one of our kindergarten students. And we're going to talk about this during the webinar, but a big part of our philosophy here at Langley is to develop our curriculum around inquiry-based instruction. And when you look at this little girl who's gazing at this plant, she has been asked by her teacher to notice, wonder, explore, and question what is before her. And I just thought you might enjoy seeing a visual representation of some of the ideas and concepts that I will present today. But as a snapshot, I think it's worth telling you a little bit about our school. We are, by design, intentionally a preschool through 8th grade school, coeducational, located, day school located in McLean, Virginia. 38% of our families and students identify as students of color or diverse in some way. We have a $1.8 million financial aid budget, which we administer to families so that we can make this wonderful educational experience accessible. Our student-teacher ratio is roughly 7 to 1. And I guess what I would say more than anything is our philosophical approach to our school program is that there is a very, very important student-teacher-parent partnership that's at the heart of what we do and what makes our school unique. If you come to Langley and spend any time in the company of me or my staff, you're going to hear this, phrase a lot. If you get the foundation right, anything and everything is possible. We say this because we believe passionately that when you attend to the early years and the middle school years of learning and development and do that at a very sophisticated high level, you set children and young adults up for success later in life. We know that the foundation has to be the strongest part of anything, a building, a structure, but we certainly know that in education, when you develop foundational important skills early on in a child's career, you actually teach them skills, you give them attitudes and a mindset about learning that instills in them confidence and positions them to take on whatever they need to in high school, college, and beyond. So if you were to invest resources at a particular time in a child's development, I feel passionately that doing it early and making sure that they have the best possible preparation between the ages of 3 and 8th grade, you give them a gift that will really ensure that they are successful later in life. One of the things that we do at Langley proudly is that we pay careful attention to what the field of cognitive neuroscience is telling us about student learning. We are blessed to be leading schools right now in a time where there is a tremendous amount of research on how children learn and the diversity of ways in which children learn and some of the things that you can do to enhance learning. And our curriculum and our teachers approach the enterprise of teaching with this research in mind. And we use that to inform the decisions we make about setting up classrooms, about how our curriculum is spiraled from the earliest years through 8th grade. And what we know is that when children are young, neural pathways are developing in their brains that set, as I said, the foundation for future growth and development. And there is ample evidence now that the kinds of things that students do in an inquiry-based, play-based curriculum actually enhance and deepen the neural pathways that they are developing. So things like exploration, critical thinking, problem solving, sophisticated literacy and language-based skills actually shape their brains. And a lot of the way they do that is through active experiential play-based learning. We also know that having this kind of inquiry environment and a play-based program creates greater social and emotional and academic success. This is what the research is telling us. So we take that research and use it to shape our learning environment. I'm sure many of you have seen the latest Time magazine that's on the shelf, which is focusing on what we have known for a long time, that there is a really important science of childhood. And when you understand that as a parent, and certainly as an educational institution, you can better support the development of all of the children in your care. And then the other thing that we know at Langley, and we believe passionately, is that teacher quality is probably the single most important factor that affects student learning and achievement. When you have a talented teacher who knows his or her craft and can understand the students in the classroom, that will make the difference in the learning outcomes for the students. More than the fanciness of the campus, more than other variables related to identity, where you grow up, how much money you have, the single most important variable is an excellent teacher. So what we have done is developed a professional development program, a teacher feedback and coaching model, and an evaluation system that allows teachers to be their best. Because if we invest our resources in the teachers, we know that will trickle down to every single student and impact the learning in the most powerful way. So the result of all of this, combining our knowledge of cognitive neuroscience with developing fantastic teachers, is to create an environment that is highly stimulating, academically challenging for kids, where they develop a love for learning, ownership of their learning, and the confidence to go on to their next learning environment prepared for whatever that challenges may be ahead. In addition, one of our core values is really this idea that, for all the reasons that I've just suggested, childhood is really important. And so it's not something that we should just pass through without a great deal of attention to what is going on. We actually need to be very intentional about what happens in childhood. It's the whole point. And so we build our program in such a way that we pay attention to these foundational years. We don't rush it, we slow down, we savor the growth and development of these children, and we attend to it in a very nuanced way. The program here is not about rote memorization and about feeding back information, data points to teachers. It is about deeply engaging the learning that happens and ensuring that children are growing in confidence and really understanding how they learn so that they can take the reins of their intellectual development. In this picture, we have a little boy who's doing something that he loves. He's sitting on the floor, he's moving, he's using his hands, but he's also sorting all of those objects that were in that plastic bin. And what he's doing is classifying, sorting, patterning, and what you learn from that is actually that's the foundation for analytical thinking and reasoning. And in order to do that well, you are actually teeing up the ability to do algebra, to understand and analyze data, to graph it, to understand number operations, to have some sense of basic geometry and measurement. And so while he's having a blast and he and his friends are going to love this activity, we're actually setting him up to be ready for our math program in subsequent years. In addition to this really nuanced academic program that's scaffolded to student development and relies on research on how teaching is most effectively delivered, we also at Langley feel passionately that we have to be developing the social and emotional capacity and acuity of the children in our care. We believe this because we want to raise children of substance who are confident, kind, thoughtful, moral young people. But we do it because there is a bevy of research that suggests that if you do this well, you actually ensure the academic achievement of children. This is not a nice to have, this is a must to have. The Fast Track project was a research project that took place over 20 years, and they retrospectively studied a group, actually prospectively studied a group of 900 kindergartners who they had followed during their kindergarten years. And they were tracking how well those children had pro-social skills, things like solving problems, getting along with their peers, sharing, cooperating, being helpful. And what they found, not surprisingly, 20 years later, the children who were rated the highest in these kinds of attributes were the most successful in school, academically, and they were the most well-adjusted in their careers and in their lives. That is no small matter. So what that tells us is if we develop intentional early childhood and kindergarten classrooms where those skills are promoted, we're helping these children long after they will leave us into young adulthood be more successful in life. We also believe that teaching empathy and resilience is as important as teaching anything else. Richard Weisford is a Harvard-based researcher who's done a ton of research examining how to raise children who have the moral capacity for empathy so that they're not only kind and happy children, but they are able to walk in someone else's shoes, to take a different perspective. And again, we believe this is not only an important life skill, but something that's going to help them be a better scholar, a better social scientist, a better scientist if they have those capacities. We have done a lot of work with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and the work that they have done on developing a ruler program, which helps children understand their emotions, identify them, regulate them, and really be managing their emotional state in the classroom. Obviously, if a child is not feeling emotionally well, they're not going to be free to learn. So creating opportunities for them to develop their emotional capacity will actually help them be better citizens of the school community, but also be more successful in the classroom. We have scaled a lot of our professional development efforts to give our teachers the exposure to this kind of social and emotional training so that they can be prepared to support students. Our next webinar here at Langley will be led by Dr. Sarah Sumwalt, who is our Director of Social and Emotional Learning. And so if you're interested in this topic, which is everywhere in the news, I would suggest you join that webinar so she can explain our unique approach to this. I think a lot of schools are dipping their toe into the pond, but I'm excited about the way we are approaching it because I think it's actually quite forward-thinking and very unique. So again, how does this tie to our value, our lived values here at Langley? What you should take away from this is that we tend to the social and emotional growth not to supplement their academic and intellectual achievement here at Langley, but to ensure it. And again, the research that I just mentioned really points directly to the relationship between academic achievement and success and this social and emotional acuity. So obviously, at the risk of being repetitive, we think when you combine a rigorous academic program that is challenging, developmental in nature, rooted in principles of excellent instruction and in cognitive neuroscience, and you pair that with a dynamic and progressive social and emotional curriculum that is embedded in the school, then you give the strongest, it's the perfect intertwined foundation. We've been working on this for a number of years, and it was really heartening. Literally 2 weeks ago, the Aspen Institute published a study that took scientists and scholars from across the country to sort of synthesize and aggregate the research that has been done around the relationship between and the interconnectedness of social, emotional, and academic development with learning. So this study from the Aspen Institute actually adds a gigantic punctuation mark to the things we have been doing here at Langley that says if you want kids to learn at their best capacity and to the greatest degree of success, you have to be giving them a program that is not rote, that is deeply engaging to them cognitively and intellectually, but you are also providing them ways to think about who they are becoming, and how they relate to others in the classroom. So again, we think our program is really exciting. This is not an off-the-shelf thing you can buy. It's something we have developed organically here at Langley that is embedded in all that we do, and I think that's important. The upshot of all of this, of course, is when you do this well, you empower children who are able to take sensible, meaningful risks. They will step out of their comfort zone and they will try things. They will really push themselves to experience new things and not take the safe path. And that's actually important cognitively and intellectually for growth and development. We do not coddle children here. They are not overly protected. They use their skills to engage the intellectual process and the process of being a citizen of this community such that they will step out and try things. And then we give them the resilience and the social and emotional capacity to bounce back when things don't go perfectly. Because you don't want a child who is risk averse, and you don't want a child who doesn't know what to do when they hit a setback. You want a child who can problem solve and eventually be independent of you as parents and move on in their lives. And we think this unique combination does that to the greatest effect. If you go on our website, you'll see this awesome little animation of the Langley arc of development. And again, this pulls together a lot of the strains and the themes that I've been talking about this afternoon, that our program is very developmental. That when you think about this arc, it is the steepest in the young years. The growth between the ages of 3 and 5 is tremendous. You think about the difference between a kindergartner and a third grader. So much has happened. And what we know is there are predictable milestones that are cognitive, social, emotional, and physical that happen for children. And we also know that even though this arc is lovely and uniform, that the development isn't always linear and predictable. Kids have setbacks. They have growth spurts. And so what we do is we go out and hire teachers who are expert at their portion of the arc. And they know what a third grader is like, better than anybody else in the school. And they can scaffold the learning to the needs of third graders. They know what to watch for when a child is having a growth spurt. They know what to do when a child is having a hiccup or a confidence, a moment of lacking confidence. And then they develop the lessons and they structure the classroom to meet the needs of those particular children. So we can scaffold instruction to have the greatest impact. We can evoke curiosity at the right moments. And we do this in a very nuanced way. And it affects who we hire. It affects how we design our daily schedule. It affects the kind of professional development we put into the school community. So again, I just want to emphasize this because I think there is no greater moment of growth than between preschool and 8th grade. And so having a school that is entirely developmental and research-based in how they approach that is really powerful. There will be another webinar after the one on social and emotional learning on November 8th that will focus on the middle school part of our arc. Many of you may have questions about what it's like to get to that stage of the development of children, and we're going to have one that talks about how our model really promotes and supports the development of our middle schoolers. And I would also suggest, as you think about maybe how you grew up and the kind of learning environments you have been in, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about what we think are the foundational skills and attitudes that come from this arc of development and that are rooted in our inquiry-based pedagogy. When you put inquiry at the heart of what you're doing, you are asking children to take things that they naturally possess, curiosity and wonder about the world, and then attach very specific skills to that that will allow them to become problem solvers, to deconstruct problems, to look beneath the surface, to be able to author essays and writing that makes a powerful, compelling argument that is supported with evidence. You're encouraging them to take on the challenge of debating a topic from multiple points of view. But at the heart of that, children are engaged. They are not being, the teacher is not the sage on the stage dispensing information. Children are wrestling with information and synthesizing it in a much more actively engaged way. We think that learning is stickier, if you will. We also think it gives ownership of the process to students, so they become more actively engaged than passive recipients. In the knowledge world that we live in today, we need those kinds of capacities. Information is coming at children from 100 different directions, and we want them to be sophisticated, critical thinkers who can make meaning out of that, pose important questions, suggest certain ideas for exploration, and hopefully really take their learning to the next level. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. I wish I had, particularly in these young years. But I think if I had, I would have had a particular intellectual skill and posture that would have enabled me to go even further in my own growth and development. So I offer that because I think it's worth coming and visiting us to learn a little bit more about what this looks like in the classroom. So we want to get to know you, and we hope you want to get to know us based on this webinar. You can come see us on October 18th between 9 and 11 a.m. and absolutely get a little more information about who we are. You can also call the admission office and set up a tour. We have a terrific staff here that can take you around the campus and guide you through our program in a more nuanced way. You can submit an online application early to initiate the process. That would get you in the process early, get your foot in the door, and you'd have an opportunity to connect with us quickly. In order to have a completed application, there is some testing in certain years. And a teacher recommendation, and all of those, that process is due January 12th. But the best thing I think for you to do is reach out to the admission office so they can walk you through the steps and the stages so you know exactly what you could do. The best advice I can give you obviously, is to come see us. I think it's really important to get on campus and to get a feel for this place and to meet our team. So now I'm going to pivot to questions, and we have some that are coming in. One parent has asked, earlier you spoke about parent partnership. Could you elaborate on what this would mean for a new Langley family? Oh, that's a great question. I think one of the things that we do better than any other institution is welcome a new family into the school. And the way that looks is you're going to get a lot of information from the school and from your child's teacher and from the administration. But we also pair you with a buddy family who is sort of your guide and ambassador. It's a way of connecting you with someone who has been new and been through the process, who has a child that's the age of your child, and who can help introduce you to different families in the community, but also some of the traditions and the way we do things at Langley. So again, we take great care to ensure that people are brought in a way that feels like you are oriented quickly, that you have a bunch of resources and folks who can help you understand the culture. And we get high marks on this every year when our new families give us feedback about how they entered. They feel like they were welcomed. And all of this, by the way, begins in the summer before you even set foot for the first day of school on campus in late August and early September. And we think that does a lot to make people feel welcome. And obviously the partnership, one of the things that you get in an independent school is a lot of communication from classroom teachers. And it's not just at report card time. We have parent-teacher conferences where parents come in and visit with us. Our teachers pick up the phone and call home whenever they want to share a victory or tell you a great story about something that happened in class or share something that they think they might be concerned about. So there's a lot of communication, and we encourage parents to reciprocate. So we believe that the best experience for children, is to have, that happen in partnership with parents. And let's see. For a number of reasons, this is a second question, for a number of reasons, we as parents are ready to move our daughter from public school to private, but she's very upset about the idea and doesn't want to leave her friends. Oh gosh, do you have any guidance about how to navigate that? I hear that a lot. Our admission team hears it a lot. And we have to remember, I think, all of us can go back to remember, being in middle school and how important the social world is. What we have found, almost to a one, is the children that come here are able to retain their friendships with some of their neighborhood friends, but make new friends at Langley. One of the things that is a hallmark of this place is that the children here are kind and inclusive. One of the things that I think helps with that is we don't have a high school. So our middle schoolers are still middle schoolers through and through. They're not trying to be more mature than they are. They're not stretching into the teen years too quickly. And we talk with them about what it means to be inclusive and to be kind and to be welcoming. And what I find is that when parents stay the course and say, that you can have it both ways here. You can retain your friendships, but get a new environment. You may get some to do things at this new school that you wouldn't be able to do in your old school. And when we do the partnering and pairing up with the ambassador families and things like that, that actually it's the idea of the transition that's much more painful and scary than the actual transition. It looms larger in the imagination than it does in practice. And that just happens time and time again. I know it can be hard. There can be tears, there can be, resistance. But as I said, once you get about, 1 or 2 days under the belt, it's a distant memory. And so I would encourage you to take some solace in that. That's a great question though. Is there a better entry point? This is another question for new students. That's a wonderful question. And the reality is we do have some traditional entry points. Obviously, our preschool is one of our major entry points. And sometimes in grade and kindergarten is another big entry point. But at Langley, we really take the admission process seriously, and we're about finding students who have the capability to do our program and who are going to enrich our community. So students come at different points. Now, some years it's tight. We have grades that are full. I would never suggest that someone not apply. If you're interested in